Welcome back. According to new research, sea levels are rising several times faster today than at any other point in the past 3,000 years. Scientists believe that if humans don't get control of greenhouse gas emission levels, then sea levels could rise by as much as 3 to 4 feet by the year 2100. Well, let's discuss the implications of this. Joining us now via Skype is Francois Engelbrecht. He's a senior researcher at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. Francois, good morning and thanks for your time. Just looking at the information coming through, it's projected global warming will cause sea levels to rise by as much as 5 millimeters per year over the next 100 years. 5 millimeters doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually is and could have serious implications.
Yes, indeed, Iveka. This is now, of course, under low mitigation, where we keep on polluting the atmosphere with mainly carbon dioxide and also a few other greenhouse gases. Now, if we continue doing what we are doing today in terms of greenhouse gas release and burning of fossil fuels, that is the root problem, we are looking at sea level increases conservatively estimated to be in the order of 50 centimeters to a meter by the end of the century. There is some credible research papers that actually estimate this number to be as high as 2 meters globally. Now, this is happening over roughly 100 years or so, and it may not sound much, but only a 50 centimeter increase in the global sea level for many locations will displace several millions of people. And in the case of a 2 meter increase, tens of millions of people. That's, of course, because many of the world's largest cities are located in coastal plains and coastal areas.
Which will be the areas that will be immediately under threat, Francois, if the worst had to happen?
Well, if we look firstly here in Southern Africa, we are in a fortunate position that our coastline, specifically for South Africa, is generally quite steep. So we are not that vulnerable to sea level rise as many other parts of the world are. But looking further in Africa, our neighboring country, Mozambique, is much more vulnerable with much broader coastal plains. And then, of course, many countries in Southeast Asia. I think in the first place about Bangladesh. All those low-lying Southeast Asian countries are highly vulnerable. That's where many of the displacements will take place.
So are we saying that eventually these cities, these towns, these villages will end up underwater?
Well, that is probably only true for some of the island states. So if we look at the Polynesian islands in the Pacific Ocean and Maldives in the Indian Ocean, a 2 meter level increase in sea level will seriously threaten these states. And it is likely that some of these Pacific Ocean island states will have to be evacuated due to a sea level increase in the order of 1 to 2 meters. So, and in many other parts of the world, it's more about, several hundreds of meters of coastline being gradually flooded by the increasing sea levels. And in those cases, there will be no choice but to retreat from these rising sea levels, which will lead to the displacement of several millions of people.
So, Francois, where do we begin? I mean, we know that we've been told for years now that we need to reduce these emissions, and we know that industry plays a big part in this. What do we do?
Well, we now have the Paris Agreement, which was reached last November and December due to the Conference of the Parties 21 of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change negotiations. This agreement will be signed from April this year onwards, and that process will last for about a year. But this is our one big chance for about 200 countries in the world to sign off on a binding treaty that will enforce the reduction of global greenhouse gas concentrations and emissions. So what is really important is that the big industrial countries of the world commit to this agreement, and that these commitments are strong enough to keep the global temperature increase below at least below 2 degrees Celsius during the 21st century, preferably 1.5 degrees Celsius. And that is our best chance to mitigate many of the upcoming effects of climate change, including sea level rise.
All right, thanks very much for that explanation. Francois Engelbrecht, he's a senior researcher at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research.